This means it has to be so severe that it impacts their educational experience or their access to education. Pervasive, meaning it's so ingrained that it's really inhibiting them in their educational process. And then objectively offensive. This is kind of just like if you as a person would find those actions or the person that it's happening to if they find it offensive. Because some people have different standards of what would offend them and what wouldn't. The other thing is that for Title IX, for it to be under Title IX, it generally needs to happen on campus or an area where the college has substantial control. Now, for SLCC, it's a little bit different because at a 4-year acknowledged sorority and fraternity houses would be included in that. We don't really have like we don't have student housing. We don't have separate buildings for student groups and stuff. So that kind of helps us limit to where it would happen. The other thing that they mentioned in the new regs is that it has to be in the United States only. So if we take students on a field trip, right, we would need to have substantial control over those students to have it be considered Title IX. If we had something here like an event, that would be included. But if we were to ever do a study abroad program, I'm not sure if that's happened here, but if anything like that, it would not be included under Title IX. Now, when I first heard all this, I'm like, it has to be so severe, pervasive, it has to be right on the campus. Like, this is going to limit people's ability to report if something happened to them. Say they were on the way to school and something happened to them. The good thing is about that is just because it's not covered under Title IX, we do have a process B, which is like the alternative process to Title IX. So if it doesn't fall under Title IX, we would of course address it under the code of conduct. So there's like a sexual misconduct, there might be new terminology, but it addresses things like this. Because it also, I just started thinking about this and reading up on it, virtual learning. So if somebody is harassing somebody over Canvas chat, do we have substantial control over that student when they're at their house typing to another student? You're kind of unsure. So under Title IX may or may not be covered, but under Code of Conduct, those things will definitely still be addressed. The other interesting thing is that they've now incorporated live hearings. So you have a complainant, that's the person making a complaint saying, you know, maybe somebody is sexually harassing them at school every day. The respondent would be the person that's accused of that action, and both parties would go to a live hearing if they continue with the formal process, the complaint process, and both of those parties are entitled to an advisor. So it's kind of like a court of law, basically how it's set up, but it's not the law. It's just for school purposes, for our own internal purposes on determining sanctions and stuff. But they would have advisors that they could pick. So it could be their mom. It could be a lawyer that they pay. It could literally be anybody that they choose to be their advisor. And an advisor is in charge of cross-examining the other person. Now, thankfully, we've decided to do a decision-making panel. So this will be faculty and staff members that sit and they kind of field the questions. So if an advisor asks an inappropriate, irrelevant question, before the other person responds, our decision makers would say that's not relevant. You can't ask that. So after each question, it's reviewed whether they can answer that or not. So it's a little bit, I think, calmer. Wouldn't be as aggressive as like a court of law situation. But the reason I'm also mentioning the live hearings is because we did just have to establish a Title IX team of faculty and staff. So prior, I think it was Erica as the Title IX coordinator. As the Title IX coordinator, she could make decisions too. So she could help investigate and make decisions. There was Stephen North, he also helps with the investigations, the head of security. But now, if you're a Title IX coordinator, you cannot make decisions. So we had to basically figure out what faculty and staff members we wanted to ask to be part of the Title IX team. And so that includes the decision makers. Those are the people kind of tasked with determining what they think should happen, but also advisors. So just like in a court of law, if you don't have an attorney, one will be appointed to you. So we're required to appoint an advisor for students that don't actually have an advisor. So we had to get faculty and staff willing to do that too. And I just think it's a lot. So I'm not sure the turnover, or, if you get busy, this does take a lot of time if a case was to actually happen. So I think we're always kind of looking for people that might be interested in those roles. So just as a heads up, you might be sought out to or be invited to join the Title IX team in one of those roles. Thankfully, this doesn't happen often at SLCC, especially under the new regulations where how severe it has to be and pervasive. So I don't think these will be happening every semester or anything like that. But we do just want to be prepared and make sure to follow the regulations. The other thing, while I'm presenting this, obviously, we're expecting changes will likely happen under the new administration when they take office. I think it's already been mentioned that some of this stuff might change or be rethought out. The experts do predict that live hearings will still be a thing, but some of the other stuff, the criteria might change. So definitely just be on the lookout. We do update our policies on our website, so you can always see the updated policies. So I don't think that's going to take effect as soon as the president is in office, but I think it probably will change in the future. Okay, so this is your role. So this is faculty and staff. Under the new regulations, they've said that you do not have to require all of your faculty and staff to be responsible parties who are mandated to report. You don't have to. However, at SLCC, we're keeping it the same as it has been before. So you're responsible parties who are mandated reporters. There are specific exceptions. One of them I just thought of is like counseling services. So if you're a confidential, you're allowed to maintain confidentiality. Those individuals are not required to report. I think another one would be like a school lawyer. They're allowed to keep confidentiality, but everybody else is expected to report actual or suspected discrimination or harassment to appropriate officials immediately. And I will talk more about who the appropriate officials are, but mainly it would be the Title IX coordinator that you would want to report that to immediately, and I'll show you where to go to a form that you can fill out to document it that way. So it's always important, if you see something happening, you want to report it. If you heard of something happening, you would want to report it. And then if a student discloses to you that something happened, of course, you would want to report that. A little bit later, I'll kind of talk about how to handle that situation if a student was to disclose that to you, because I think some people are kind of taken aback and don't know how to respond appropriately. So we'll talk about that too. I also just want to keep reiterating, if you're not sure if you should report it, definitely call Erica. She'll be back, I think, next week, the 19th, or me, and just ask and see, say, hey, this happened. Should I fill out the form? Should I just do it under code of conduct? But even if you were to mess up and report it as Title IX, we determine, we read through it, we say, okay, this isn't Title IX, so we'll just move it over to conduct. So definitely, if you're unsure, just contact us. We can let you know, or just report it. It's always important to just try to report. Better be safe than sorry. Okay, so as mandated reporters, like I said, you have to promptly notify the Title IX coordinator all known details of the report made to them in the course of the employment. So this is just basically saying all the details that you have on the incident or what happened, you'll want to report promptly to the Title IX coordinator. It's really important that you do it promptly. There's not really a time frame where you're required to report by, but it gets into sticky situations. Let's say, for example, we're at the end of the semester, and the person, the alleged perpetrator, right, the respondent, is being accused of sexually assaulting somebody on the campus. Now, if you don't report this until after that person graduates, we no longer have substantial authority over them at all. So really, we couldn't handle it under Title IX anymore because we need to have like responsibility over that person. They would still need to be like a student here. So you just want to, as soon as something happens, as soon as you see something, just report it right away. Share all the details of behaviors that you observe or have knowledge of, even if it's not reported to you by a complainant or third party. So this means if you know something or you heard students talking about it after a student disclosed to you something happened to them, you would still want to report on the additional information, even if that student didn't explicitly tell it to you, but you heard about it or saw something, or there was some other type of behavior. Maybe the respondent was saying inappropriate things in class that might add to it. You would just want to report on all of that. And then failure to report an incident of harassment or discrimination is a violation of college policy. So like I said, you'll just want to report on it. The form is pretty easy, again, and just calling us, it's not difficult. So here is just to summarize how to report. Like I said, you would contact the Title IX coordinator or the deputy Title IX coordinator, and then you would want to complete a Title IX form on the SLCC homepage. Now, I put a picture here on the right side. This is at the very, very bottom of our homepage. Way past where the campuses are. You have to scroll down to the very end, and there's something right here that says Title IX form. That's where you would click and document that. Under there is an anonymous portion. However, we would like faculty and staff to not be anonymous. You're required to report it as yourself. The anonymous is typically for students. If a student was going to report and they didn't want to disclose who they were, they could do it anonymously. Unfortunately, though, if it's anonymous, we have very little to go on. We don't know who reported it. It's just really difficult that way. And I'll talk about it, I think, on the next slide, why students are hesitant to want to say their name, but why it's not such a big deal and it would still be okay. The other thing is we are transitioning to Maxian. I don't know if anyone's heard of that. It's a software where we'll be doing conduct reporting and Title IX reporting. So I think it will be a lot easier. I think it will streamline the process. So if you needed to do something for conduct, a conduct report, or a Title IX, they would all be in the same place. We are being trained on that soon. So definitely just look out for more information on that, because we will be transitioning away from this Title IX form on the web page. I just wanted to make sure to let everyone know, in case something happened next week, how you would do it. You would do it this way. The other thing I just wanted to mention is what I'm talking about now is typically student on student Title IX, or student and faculty, or student and staff. If it was two faculty members, and one of them wanted to report, you could report it to the Title IX coordinator and we would still want you to complete the form, but that is something that goes through HR as well. Alicia handles the faculty on faculty or staff on staff Title IX. We kind of join together if it's a faculty and staff and a student. So you just want to let HR know. Of course, if you don't remember that, if you just contact me or Erica, we can tell you, hey, you'd want to tell Alicia about this, so that can get handled appropriately. Okay, so supporting students. So this is kind of about if a student reports to you or discloses information to you, how you should handle it and what you should avoid doing. Now, I first say, when I was thinking about it, I'm not a faculty member, but as a faculty, as a staff member, it's kind of similar. I picture how these conversations usually come up for me where I find something is wrong with a student. It's that I see changes of behavior, like They were constantly working on school, were really like trying to be productive, seemed happy. And then I stopped seeing them at school. They stopped visiting me. They forgot about homework. And it was just like a downward spiral. So I think faculty, this might happen too when you're teaching a course and you see a student who's been doing so well, and then all of a sudden it's just what happened, right? So I think they come up where you say, "Hey, is everything okay?" You see their decline of grades or see that they're not coming to class anymore, and I think that genuinely right there kind of makes them feel like you're concerned about them. So I feel like that makes them feel like they can trust you and letting you know something. So I think that a lot of the times is how these things might come up. Now, of course, if you have a close relationship with a student anyway, and something happens to them, they might just disclose it to you. Now, in either of those instances, you'll want to make sure to let the student know you're required to report what they disclose to you. So before they even get into details, you'll want to, politely interrupt and just say, I do want to just let you know that I'm a mandated reporter and will have to report to administration everything that you tell me about this. Now, you might feel like, well, now they're going to stop talking to me. If they're trying to disclose it to me and not administration, they're not going to want to say anything more. And that's okay. They might limit the details. They might tell you some things about what happened, but not go into details. And that's okay too. You'll want to report it either way, whether you have a bunch of details or not, and just kind of let them know or connect them with the Title IX coordinator. So you could send us information about the student, like the student's name, and we'll reach out to them. And you'll also want to just let them know that there are support services for them. So if they want to go to the counseling office and talk to somebody, things like that. Normally, when we reach out to the student after something like this, we set up the support services, give them a list of places they can go for help and for support. Okay, let me see. Just lost my train of thought. Okay. What you would want to avoid, oh, I remember, for dues, the language that you'd want to use. So, say a student is talking to you about something that happened, like I said, they're sexually assaulted. You could say something like, I'm sorry that happened to you. I want to try to help you as best that I can, and then give the resources, like I said, the Title IX coordinator information, counseling information. And also, if they, like I had mentioned, if they don't want to tell you anymore after you tell them you're required to disclose, you can let them know of the confidential resources that they could go to. So, for example, counseling, if they wanted to discuss it with them first, or that's who they wanted to discuss it with. Another thing I wanted to mention is some of these instances, like I had mentioned, if it doesn't happen on campus, right? So, say a student comes to you and discloses they have a domestic violence situation. Although domestic violence is covered under the sexual harassment umbrella, if the domestic violence happened at home and not on campus, we can't really handle that under Title IX. Both the respondent would need to be a student, and it would need to happen where we had substantial control over them. However, if those things are reported to you, you still let us know. So whether it's, it could be at their house, it could be outside somewhere, it could have been at a party. If they're disclosing it to you, it's better to just let us know, because in those situations, we would still provide support services. So even though we can't, do anything about it, they can always report it to the law enforcement. There can be stuff done for that, of course. But as of SLCC, we can't really do anything, but we can provide them support and kind of figure out ways to help them. Like, for example, if a student is having a really bad home situation, right, a domestic violence situation, and they're trying to escape that, and they're not able to get their homework done in a timely manner because they don't have their computer anymore, that's something we would want to work through. So you as an instructor or a staff member can help figure that out for them, but the Title IX coordinator and me as the deputy Title IX coordinator can work through that too. We can make contact with their instructors and kind of just let them know that they're going to need extra time or additional support or some type of accommodation to make sure that they're all set that way. So those are the main things. The things you don't want to do if they disclose to you, they mention use victim blaming language. So don't mention like, oh, you shouldn't have been at that place anyway, or just things that would make them feel like it was their fault. You also don't want to investigate or pry for details. They're going to tell you what they want to tell you. You don't need to ask them any additional questions. I think that might be kind of your initial reaction, like you want to get all this information so you can report it to us. But if they're not saying it, you don't want to ask about any details. Our Title IX team will have 2 investigators. Those people will do all the interviews and documentation of that. So it will come out if we do end up further investigating it, but you'll just want to be an active listener, just listen and try to be as supportive and compassionate as you can. Don't attempt to counsel the student. This also goes with like giving advice. You don't need to let them know what you would do in the situation. It's kind of just, you want to make sure that they know what they can do to get help. You can let them know, the Title IX coordinator, they can contact the police if they want, all of those things. Just let them know what they can do, not what you would want them to do. And also don't tell them that they need to contact the police. Just let them know it's an option. That's it. We don't need to push for any of that. It's kind of what they choose. Okay, now this is pregnant and parenting. So this is a complete little turn. Does anybody have any questions on that? The ending will be, go ahead.
Question for the Title IX reporting for the faculty to faculty. So if another faculty member witnesses faculty to faculty discrimination, is it mandatory that you report it?
Mandatory that you report it. I did read in our LCTCS policy that if you yourself, as a faculty member, is being discriminated against or sexually harassed, you're not required to report it about yourself. So if you don't want to report something happening to you, you don't have to. We obviously would recommend that you do so we can handle it, but you're not required to if it's happening to you.
Gotcha. But if we witness someone else, other faculty and faculty members, we would have to. Okay.
Is there any other questions about that? Like I said, if you do want to read more about it, if you go to our website and you type in Title IX, there's the policies there, the LCTCS policy that just came out, and it goes more in depth about all of this stuff. I just don't want to be confusing with new regulations, just kind of what you would need to know, which is that you need to be a mandatory reporter and just report on anything that you hear from a student. Anything else on that?
Can we get a copy of this slideshow so that we can share it with the other faculty who's not here? Because there are slight changes, and they might need to be, other faculty need to be informed.
Definitely. Yeah. So I'll ask, I might be able to get it on our website too in the Title IX section. I also forgot to mention that I'm pretty sure pretty soon there'll be a mandated reporter training that's required of faculty and staff. So they will get some form of training that discusses this so they know what their responsibility is. I think it was just kind of about the new regulations. If you read about it, it says, that not everyone's required to report. But we have decided that everyone is, so the changes are not that major here in terms of what faculty and staff do. Okay, so now this is what I find is most common at SLCC, pregnant and parenting students. Of course, there's pregnant students all the time. Now, people don't necessarily think, well, we're not discriminating against pregnant students. They're allowed to come to class, and people think that's enough. They're allowed to come. We're not telling them they can't go to school, but they need to just keep up with everything. However, we need to give them access to school programs and educational opportunities like students have, which is typically what I just said. But then we also need to allow excused absences for as long as medically necessary. So you might think somebody has a baby, they should be back to class in a week. If their doctor determines it's 8 weeks, then you have 8 weeks to work with. We need to try to accommodate that person for those 8 weeks. This also includes giving opportunities to make up missed work with the goal of the student graduating on time. Now, if the student wants to take time off, that's fine. They're choosing to not graduate on time. But if they're wanting to pursue and continue at the same rate, then we'll try to adjust to that as much as we can.
Shelby, I have a question.
Sure.
What if the program doesn't allow for it? A lot of our technical programs that are 1 year, they don't allow for, 8 weeks. And a lot of the work can't be done at home online.
So that actually has happened recently with the technical program. And we just have to find solutions. So I was talking to the state board for that technical program and their licensures. I was talking to the instructor, the coordinator of that program, the dean, to make something work. So it might not be, say the student says, I want to take 8 weeks off and just go back to normal, and think, that they're not going to have to make up work somehow or something. Obviously, they might not get exactly what they want, but we need to find a way, if they can do some online, if they can stay later certain days, if it's about hours that they need to make, all of those things.
And we have to exhaust those options first, but once they're exhausted and it's still not possible,
then we can let them know that it's not possible. I think more often than not, some type of accommodation is possible. But say they needed to sit out a semester and come back. They just can't be delayed. The issue with the programs here sometimes is that if they miss a semester, they're not technically supposed to be able to continue, right? In those technical programs, you have to go semester by semester. And then they won't be able to get back in that class until that cohort comes around again. So now they're delayed a year or more. That they're saying is not appropriate under Title IX. So there needs to be another solution rather than just come back when a new cohort comes in a year and you can pick up where you left off. They're saying that that's too long of a time period that you're inhibiting their graduation. Now, if the student wants to do that, that's perfectly fine. If the student wants that or doesn't want to miss any class or anything, that's perfectly fine.
Thank you.
Other types of accommodations could be, if they need a closer parking spot, modified lifting requirements. So some technical programs require you have to be able to lift this amount, and we're supposed to be able to accommodate that. So again, a lot of different parties would have to be included in that, because if it's nursing, the hospital or wherever might have certain rules on that, but we just have to try to make it work as much as possible. So what's your role in this? Faculty and staff, definitely let your students know that they can request accommodations. I think the main thing I've seen when I've told a student is I didn't know that existed. They had no idea that they could request excused absences, that they can get makeup work when they're trying to have their baby. So just let them know that's possible. Now, not all pregnant students want to request accommodations. Some of them say, I'm going to have my baby, I'll be out 3 days or 2 days, and I'm coming right back. And that's fine. If they don't want to request accommodations, we just think it's better if they do, because say they went into labor earlier, something happened, right? And they need to be out for a longer period of time. We will have already had them on our radar and can let instructors and everyone know that that student is out. So just that's an option. It is on our website. If they go to the Title IX section, under pregnant and parenting, it just says request accommodations. And don't worry, we do require doctor's notes. Instructors would never see that, but we need medical documentation that they'll be out for that period of time and that their doctor is recommending it, and proof that they are pregnant from their doctor. So we do get all this documentation and go based off what is medically necessary based on what their doctor said. So yeah, if you're a staff member like me as a student life, well, when I was a student life coordinator, I just let students know, hey, if you need time off or if you're having trouble, feel free to do the accommodations. They can only help you, and just make sure that you're prepared. We do recommend that they do it as soon as possible within the semester, because what we do once we get it, okay, yeah, I still looked. What we do once we get it is make a letter and send it to the instructors saying, this is what this student needs, or this is how long they'll be out, things like that. Now, semester, that sometimes changes. So if they knew in the fall, we wouldn't really know who to tell for the spring, because we wouldn't necessarily know who their instructor was, unless it was a technical program that stays consistent. Then that's fine. We've done that recently where we inform the instructor way ahead of time. And that just gives us tons of time, like you all had mentioned, to figure out ways to accommodate them. We have, maybe months to figure it out and kind of work with the student to see what we can do to make it work. So as faculty, we just, ask that you work with students to allow makeup work and excused absences. Under Title IX, it is required that you do so. You could do so just with the student. If you guys wanted to work something out on your own, that's fine. But if the student does request accommodations, we would let you know of that. And if there was any kind of confusion between the student and you, the Title IX coordinator would work with you to figure out how those can be accommodated. I know as faculty, allowing makeup work from a while ago or allowing for excused absences, sometimes it does require more work from you. So we definitely appreciate you guys going above and beyond to do that. It's just really important that we do for Title IX purposes. So I know it might put more of a burden on you to help this student, but we really just want to make sure everyone's getting the same access and getting what they need. Like I have mentioned.
Shelby, I have a question.
Sure.
Real quick, it's just about the wording. You say pregnant and parenting. Does that include students that say, I couldn't make it to lab today because I had to go pick up my child at school because they were sick?
It's called Pregnant and Parenting, but it's basically centered around childbirth and thereafter. So it's a little bit harder to say that situation. It's about students that are pregnant and then when they have their baby in that time frame. So no, it wouldn't include that. And we've talked about it for male students. There's nothing really on that because, male students don't necessarily birth the baby, but they're having a baby too. And it's not as strict about that. It's about basically pregnant women and then their childbirth and what they need for that time.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Then just make sure to understand that the accommodations might conflict with your classroom policy. So you might say you're allowed two excused absences and that's it. Again, some of these things, the accommodations we provide, will conflict with what you have set for the rest of your class. And that might seem unfair. Like, if another student is having a medical surgery or something, right, and they need to miss class, how are they not getting accommodated under this? And there's different aspects to that. They can potentially get excuses under disability services, things like that. But just for Title IX's sake, this is included. So we do have to enforce that and try to make sure to follow these regulations as best as we can, which means just accommodate them as much as we can. Are there any other questions? No? Okay. Just wanted to remind everyone that we do have resources and these policies on our website. So if you want to go check them out, you totally can and read up more on that. You can also, if something happens, right, and you're unsure what you're supposed to do, if you pull up the policy, it will tell you what mandated reporters are required to do, and you can just follow that. And of course, you can always just contact me or the Title IX coordinator. I think I forgot to record it. Oh man.
Shelby, I have a question.
Sure.
So I know with the pregnant and parenting, I guess because of the changes that are occurring, so we're going to accommodate them, and then of course immediately after. But what if that child, say within maybe those 6, 8 weeks that the doctor says that the woman is fine, what if that child during that time, it's a newborn, has like a surgery or something or anything like that? Like that's separate, correct? That wouldn't be under.
If the child was sick, you're saying?
Yes, like immediately after. So if the child was sick within, as soon as she
Immediately
gets.
after. I would think if that was the case, I think her doctor would write something saying that she needs to be with her baby. Like if her baby is so ill and she's the only person to take care of them, I think that her doctor would probably vouch for that. If that
What if it goes out of like the time frame? So what if it's like out of maybe those 6 or 8 weeks and they have to have another surgery? So it's almost like something keeps happening, but the student is still persistent that they want to remain in college. But
I have found if that happens, the student is going to feel so overwhelmed with makeup work that they're not going to want to do that. They're going to just want to pull back because they're going to be trying to catch up forever on work if they've missed that much school. So I don't think there would be pushback from the student. We can let them know, but I think that they would want to, withdraw from their classes or get an eye or something, because that just puts them in a bad position. And I think that they would realize that they don't want to be working on schoolwork while their child is in the hospital getting all these surgeries.
actually, I just wanted to make sure it wasn't crossing into like FMLA, like where is the line drawn with the children? You know what I'm saying?
The other thing I think I might have mentioned, I'm not sure, is if you're an instructor and there's a person that is pregnant and they're asking for certain accommodations, you cannot just push them to say, this is what I can do for you, and kind of make it just like you make the decision. If you're unsure or really don't know like how you can accommodate them, you feel like it's impossible, just contact us and we can be the, middleman to you and the student to figure out what you will need and what the student will need and best accommodate them.
Thanks, Shelby.
Okay, thank you. Did somebody say, is it recorded? Do we know? Oh, it looks like it is being recorded. I hope so. Okay, well, thanks for coming, y'all.
Thank you.